And here we go. It's another live Penguins chat from Shea Kingerski in the Pittsburgh Sports Live studio. Hello, I am Dan Kingerski, the editor-in-chief of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Thank you so much for joining us once again on another one of these crazy little live chats. While we get going here, we're going to talk about a few things on the show. We're going to talk, how good are the Penguins? I'll tell you what, on Tuesday night, they absolutely dismantled the Philadelphia Flyers. It wasn't that they just got up on the Flyers early. It's that they dismantled the Flyers. The Flyers could not keep up. The Flyers did not have an answer. The Penguins really, just from pillar to post, ended the Flyers game. And someone's calling me. Do you believe this? I almost want to start the show over again. Hold on one second. All right. See, I don't know what it is. Because we do use Apple products here to do the show, and if a phone call comes in, it's all Apple. You see here, the iPad, the MacBook sitting here to my left, all of this crazy stuff. In fact, the cameras. I'm actually going to have a multi-camera set here pretty soon because I've got a couple iPhones. One call comes in, everything freezes, and I've been getting just a crap ton of telemarketers lately. So, yeah. Hello, is Mr. Klingen? Just call me Dan. What do you want? I don't know. Call me crazy. I think at some point, if I was doing that job, I would take a moment, a half second, look at the person's last name at least. Or I'd be smart enough to say, hi, is this Dan or Daniel? You know, if you do call and ask for Daniel, you'll out yourself immediately as a telemarketer. But, hey, it's better than calling me Mr. Klingensmith, because that's close to my last name, right? See? How do you get Klingensmith out of that? But I digress. We'll talk about how good can the Penguins be. We'll also talk about Evgeny Malkin. We'll talk about Evgeny Malkin on two different fronts. He talked Wednesday morning in the locker room, I guess Wednesday afternoon, and I was there. And the question I really wanted to ask, but there's no way to ask it yet, of course, about the nonsense in Russia. It, by all accounts, looks like Malkin was a victim. But there's a couple details in the Russian report that will eventually either dissolve into nothing or become very important questions we have to ask later. And I kind of decided that discretion was the better part of valor on Wednesday. I can't on no planet can I imagine Evgeny Malkin being one of these shady Russian businessmen. I mean, can you? No, it doesn't add up. He obviously has some friends who are those shady Russian business types with a whole cryptocurrency thing. Malkin looks like he just is the victim of a $4 million swindle, which someday I hope to be able to lose $4 million and not lose my crap every day for a year. I don't know about you. I certainly would. So we'll talk about Malkin that way. We'll also talk about Evgeny Malkin coming back on Saturday. Can Evgeny Malkin play the right way? I think it's an important question. And I asked that question today. I asked him, point blank, coming back Saturday, can you simplify your game? And in fact, let me... I'll show you the article. If you haven't been to Pittsburgh sports or Pittsburgh Hockey Now, let me pull up that article here. And it's not coming up. Are we going to have a little... Now my Apple products are having a little pissing contest. Isn't that just lovely? Anyway, that guy. So we'll talk about that too. So plus, I got to be honest with you, I am as tired as I have ever been in my life. I mean, I'm flat out, holy crap, exhausted. And it's not even November yet. Well, it's for intents and purposes November. I'm as tired as I've ever been in my life. So I have not prepared an hour of talking points, which means you are going to be the recipient of some off-the-cuff remarks, but also want you to hop on that chat board here on the YouTube channel, and you can direct the show, what you want to talk about, where you want to go, your questions and comments. I don't think there's any way around a couple of the other talking points. Where is he? Do I not have Dominic Simone? No, I do not. Isn't that just disappointing? Because there's another guy who I think is making some interesting decisions for the Penguins, and that would be John Marino. Marino has played so well, and he's not tapering off as we get close, actually past his 10-game mark. Most rookies, you have that splash, you have that crazy energy. Marino is just playing well, and he's playing, I think, better because he's learning. He's a smart kid, and I mean that like he's a real sharp kid. Because you don't see him continually make the same mistakes. For a couple or a few games, he was chasing guys high in the zone, leaving himself vulnerable behind him, kind of in the very dirty scoring zone closer to the net. He did that a couple games. He and Jack Johnson probably communicated. He and Eric Branson communicated. And lo and behold, John Marino went and fixed it. So that's the kind of craziness that Marino fixes. And I keep waiting to sync up my laptop here, and I'm wondering why in the world it hasn't yet. I think I have to perform minor surgery. So bear with me here. Maybe I have to reclose it. I have to force quit and do all of that. So Amanda's been waiting for one of these. Well, glad you could join us, Amanda. Let's get to the pressing question. And by the way, yeah, I dusted off the vest just for these shows. A troll told me last season I looked like the expletive deleted who got tossed down the stairs and said it was his fault. I'm not even touching that with a 10-foot pole. But, oh man. So, what is... The boys were doing the NBA show. What? In my studio last night. For the life of me, I have... the guys are really good. Kale and Chris are really good hosts. No one watches NBA. Got to get them doing football. I mean, there's a great hunger for somebody who actually knows what they're doing, a decent broadcaster to do football, especially on Pittsburgh Sports Live. There's a great market for it. But we don't really have anybody doing good football, good professional football talk. And I'd like to see them do that. So Jennifer Chefro says Gino's problems are mainly mentality and injuries. After seeing the summer he had, I bet he jumps back into the game like no time lost. He was really good in preseason. I mean, Malkin was a great white shark in training camp and the preseason. He and Galchenyuk have this telepathy. They go back and forth. They don't even talk, but they each kind of know where the other wants to go. It's really, it was actually, I found it just enjoyable to watch those two. It was a little bit of the Russian Red Army kind of thing they had going, the ballet of hockey, and those two were really in sync. So don't discount Malkin hitting the ground running. He'll have like a goal and an assist on Saturday. Put that down. Malkin will have a goal and an assist on Friday, on Saturday afternoon, 1 o'clock against Edmonton. Maybe more. He's going to bust out like crazy. Let's see here. So is the hate still alive and well for Jack Johnson? Why, yes, Tom Wilson eats urinal cakes. That's what I found really. I found it just fun and funny on Tuesday night. Because, look, by any objective measure, Dominic Simone is playing really well this season. I don't mean a little bit well. I mean a lot well this season. I mean Dominic Simone is playing top-line level hockey with the Pittsburgh Penguins. 9 points in 13 games. He's never going to score 100 points. But that's kind of like the moving bar some Penguins fans have for Dominic Simone. No matter what he does, well, he's not Jake Gensel. No, of course he's not Jake Gensel. This is the salary cap age, kids. You can't have 6 Hall of Famers in your top 6. You can't have 6 All-Stars. You just can't do that anymore. And that's not to say Dominic Simone is a weak link, but that is to say that Dominic Simone's not a $10 million player. If he scores 50, 55 points, let's just say 50. Right now he's on pace for 54. Hot streaks come and go. Cold streaks come and go. Settles in at that 47 to 50 point mark. That's a hell of a season. For a guy in his second full NHL year, that's a good enough season. The fact that he creates scoring chances for Sidney Crosby. Think about that. How many Crosby line mates have been the recipient, the beneficiary of Sidney Crosby? The reason Sidney Crosby likes playing with Dominic Simone is Sidney Crosby is sometimes the beneficiary of Simone. And just driving that home, I found it just wildly amusing on Twitter. Oh, I'd like to see him bury more chances, though. Well, who the hell wouldn't want to bury more chances? Jake Gensel wants to bury more chances. What are you saying? Oh, okay, well, you're right this time, but he shouldn't be on the power play. Really? Like, that's where you're going to hang your hat? Like, in this day and age, and I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here. In this day and age, everyone's opinion's supposed to matter. Everyone spends all day throwing their opinion into the void as if you matter, and we don't. Somewhere along the line, people who everyone forgot that we don't matter. Well, and so we become emotionally invested in opinions. Rather than listening to somebody who may have covered hockey for 20 years inside and outside the game, who really, if that person didn't know more than the average fan or even media person, wouldn't have been doing his job for 20 years. Instead of actually, listening or considering to what that person says, it's, oh, well, I think this. Well, I don't care. I genuinely don't. Okay. So, yeah, the hate is still alive and well for Jack Johnson. The goalposts are moving for Dominic Simone. Now that he's playing so well, I don't quite know how to describe it. It really has become a matter of a lot of people still being invested in their old opinion and not wanting to let go of that opinion. Hey, I missed these. Randomly checked the channel. Well, NES Addict, this is actually the second one I've done. I did one last Wednesday night as well. I'm going to try to do them on Wednesday nights going forward. I do have some other obligations which may keep me from doing it every week. Oh, by the way, also an announcement. We're also going to move these to Facebook sooner than later, just because Facebook now has a monetization program, and we've got 4,000 Facebook followers. and you get a lot more views on Facebook. Let's see here. Simone's hockey IQ and passing ability are actually crazy high, and he does the little things well. Austin, you're exactly right. Look at the plays he's made this season. Even last night, he tucks in behind Crosby on his goal and then sees open space and darts for it. And Crosby just gave him the puck and let him go. And then on the goal he set up, Crosby made a wicked shot. But Simone knew enough how to find that passing lane between the layers of the Philadelphia Flyers' zone coverage. He knew enough to kind of drift back a little bit. So did Crosby. They both kind of pulled back a hair to create that passing lane. I can stream on both at the same time. Let's see if I can do that. No, I cannot. Once I start the YouTube broadcast mutation, my program here grays out the Facebook option. I wish wish upon a star. Anyway, I don't even know where I was. I told you, I'm exhausted. My mind is a little bit scattered tonight. And I don't have, for some reason, all the stuff I'd prepared here on my laptop is gone. So I can't show you so much of Pittsburgh hockey now. That indeed I had pulled up. I do want to thank our sponsors at Redbeards. Hey, Game 7 tonight, World Series. Head over to Redbeards and get yourself some all-you-can-eat wings. Watch the World Series if you're so inclined. I am not inclined. I love Redbeards. I don't love baseball anymore. Don't love it, don't care. Couldn't care less. You know what I mean? And it's a terrible way to be. But that's how it is. Let me see if I can get my damn notebook online. I'm going to have to throw a little temper tantrum. You're going to see Dan throw a temper tantrum. Nope, still can't get the mother truckers online. Isn't that a bullshit kind of thing? I think YouTube actually once pulled down a video because I used those two phrases. What's wrong with moms who drive trucks? Or those ships they transport bulls? Let's see what you got here on the chat. 2 computers and you can stream. Yeah, sure. I'm going to slap you all. 2 computers, 2 phones. Yeah. I am using SwitcherCast. Or Switcher. Switcher is the program that we use to do this. The only player I'd like to see on Sydney's wing is Andreas Athanasiou. I don't know. I know on some of the small rumor sites and the one hack rumor site, AA's name was mentioned, which I can never pronounce properly. Athanasiou or Athanasiou, AA in Detroit. Who are the Penguins going to trade at this point? You know, Eric DeBranson is gone. Who do they have that's a legit trade piece that the Penguins could deal? I don't know. Go down the list. I mean, you want to jump to Brian Rust, who fits perfectly into the Penguins' system, as it were. Still can't get it. Do you believe that? Let's see if I can do some surgery here. I have no idea what they're asking me. Good Lord Almighty. Maybe I'll hold the damn thing up to the camera. Yeah, this is an absolutely terrible show tonight, and I apologize, but this is what happens when you work 20 hours a day for 5-6 days in a row. And we'll play what's in Dan's coffee mug. Let me zoom out, and you can guess. Here's the full studio. We'll play what's in Dan's coffee mug. No, I'm really not drinking that. That would be a hell of a show, wouldn't it? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, I've kind of ranted a little bit about Dominic Simone and folks moving the goalposts. And I talked with Jack Johnson today. I'll have something on PittsburghHockeyNow.com tomorrow. By the way, if this is the first show you ever watched, just scrap this from your memory banks. Because, I am just out of sorts. I'm completely dog poo tonight. I did talk with Jack Johnson in the locker room Wednesday afternoon, and I was kind of point blank, like, okay, now that they've traded Eric Goodbranson, they've moved the salary, they've moved the defenseman, can you exhale? I'll have his answer tomorrow. I found it interesting. I've found it interesting how he has handled this entire situation. I mean, here's a guy who's been vilified by home fans. Here is a guy who's been through kind of some pretty rough family stuff, whose name wasn't just in trade rumors. It was bandied about in trade rumors with malice by some. And so, how does he handle all of that? I'll have his answer tomorrow. With Evgeny Malkin. Now, I also asked Evgeny Malkin on Wednesday afternoon if he can simplify his game. It's actually on the damn laptop. I'd show you. Go to PittsburghHockeyNow.com. Let me see. I'll put the link here because I did ask him if he can simplify his game to play with the Penguins' new scheme. And essentially, what Malkin kind of got into, he said, I don't know. It's not easy to play simple. And I'm reading here. I'm not a player who will chip the puck in all the time, but maybe when we have a lead like 3-2, I need to think about that. That's what Evgeny Malkin said. And I love how honest he is. I love how absolutely freaking honest Evgeny Malkin is. I mean, it's not like that's not the company line. Yes, I will mold right into what the team is doing. He's like, no, it's not that easy to do that. He's like, if I'm like 1-on-1 or maybe 3-on-3 on the rush, I'll play my game. I've always played like that. But we see what's going on in the game. I want to help the team win. I want to play in the last minute and be a leader. If you don't quite know what that means, he wants to play in the last minute. Well, they're not going to put, a guy who doesn't play defense. They're not going to put an offensive guy on the ice in the final minute. They're going to get people who can protect the lead, who can play a tough and hard game in the defensive zone, who have speed, who play the right way, and won't give up scoring chances. Malkin wants to be one of those guys. So I think in that regard, he's saying yes, he can adjust his game. Maybe I should... But it was an interesting contrast when you ask him about simplifying his game. You get some pushback, but then he kind of wanders into talking about adjusting his game and where he wants to go when he comes back. That's a very important thing. Let's see here. Dan, round 2 fight? I don't get it. Anyway. The gang says Jari is better than DeSmith. Okay. Atheos Sapien says, does JJ give you money or is it you kiss up for a quote? No. Your mom wanted his autograph, and so I just, I got it for her. Living outside of Pittsburgh, I'm confused on the Malkin legal stuff. What happened? The short of it is this. Malkin's friend from childhood, they played youth hockey together, junior hockey together, started a cryptocurrency company. That's like Bitcoin and these other little deals. He gets Evgeny Malkin to invest $4 million into this cryptocurrency company. With me so far. From there, this other guy, and I'm omitting some details. If you really want, Google the Russian report, and I can't promise all the details in the Russian report are accurate, and that's why I've kind of just stuck with the very baseline story. So this head of the cryptocurrency company hires his friend's wife, and there's like 4 of this little crew and gang running the company that Evgeny Malkin has invested in. They had a successful ICO, which in that little tiny world is called initial coin offering. And what, it's like an IPO, but it's an ICO because they're offering cryptocurrency. So things are going really well. Then about a year into it, they just don't pay anybody. They don't pay their developers. They don't pay the Japanese company that did a lot of work for them and was working with them. They're Japanese developers. They just stiffed everybody. And oh, by the way, in that process, they raised another round of capital to the tune of about $10 million. Evgeny Malkin was the celebrity investor that every project wants, right? They didn't have to go on Shark Tank. They had the celebrity investor in their back pocket, which always looks good to other investors. Well, they won't screw Evgeny Malkin, so I can invest. Well, they screwed everybody. So Malkin is probably out $4 million. Now, a spokesman for the company called Mark.Space said that they returned about $1.5 million to investors in the form of cryptocurrency. What that really means, no one's quite sure. If they did, if the spokesman just was talking out of his backside. But if they did give Malkin money back, now you start talking about tax ramifications. There are reportedly, from the Russian report, some papers with his signatures on it that could be trouble. It looks like Malkin just has had some bad actor friends, and that's kind of the short of it. ICO or sketch and are things in the U.S. as well. Your mom, what are you, 9? If I'm lucky, I'm 9. I'm immature. You're just a jerk. Tom Wilson eats your own cake. That stinks for Gino. Hope you learned a lesson about my money and friends. By the way, Aaron, just get off my chat. I don't need you. Don't want you. Or Atheos. I'm sorry. Aaron, I like you. Atheos. Don't need you. Don't want you. Aaron, I'm late. Who gets the scratch upon Gino's return? It's not obvious to me that one of the fourth liners or Cahoon gets scratched. I think Cahoon is... His performance in the last couple or few games probably puts him in the safe category. Dominic Cahoon is... not Cahoon. Jared McCann is a possibility to play fourth line center, which means Teddy Bluger is a possibility to be scratched. Less likely than Zach Aston Reese, who I think is the guy when Malkin comes back. I think. Because, let's see here. Now, if I could get my damn MacBook on the screen. I had all the lines to show you. But the fourth line, when Malkin comes back, Jared McCann probably kicks over to the wing. And I like keeping Teddy Bluger as the fourth line center, Bukestad the third line center, Malkin the second line center, Crosby. Maybe Cahoon, Bluger, Tanev as an extraordinary, like an all-star fourth line, which would leave out Zach Aston Reese. Or if they move McCann down, keep him at center, that puts Teddy Bluger out of the lineup, and you'd have Aston Reese, McCann, Tanev, which that's also an all-star fourth line too. Yes, mutation. I do like Zach Aston Reese as well. Injuries have just been, his development has been slowed by those injuries. I think had he not suffered any one of the 4 injuries which have caused him to miss significant time, any one of those injuries doesn't occur, I think he'd be further along. We'd know more about Zach Aston Reese. Part of what I like about the player is the potential. I still see a kid who could score 15 goals in a season. Maybe 20, because he looked pretty good on Evgeny Malkin's left wing February of last season, right before he broke his hand in the fight with Colton Sceviour of Florida. How have I liked Marino and the Johnson pairing? Very much. In fact, it's one of the things I talked with Jack Johnson today. How they're communicating, if he's communicating more so with Marino because of the age difference and the experience difference and all of those sorts of things. I think the styles are so polar opposite that it forms a really nice pairing. I think I tweeted out about last night, the Flyers iced the puck. But Jack Johnson was not going to win the race back to the Penguin zone to get the icing call. So he I saw him look over to Marino, and I asked him about it. He looked over to Marino, and then Johnson pulled the chute to run interference on the rushing Flyers going after the puck, which allowed Marino to win the race back into the zone. I thought that was a great bit of teamwork and communication. That's what I really like about that pairing, is you'll watch Johnson and Marino play together. They switch off more than the other pairings do. And that's because they're switching to jobs that fit each. If there's a scrum, Johnson goes flying over. Marino kind of takes the bird dog position to get that puck and go. They'll switch off positions. If there's a loose puck, Marino goes and gets it. Johnson kind of pulls back and defends the net because of Marino's speed. So they're using each other's strengths, I think, very well. They are a legitimate third pairing for any team of any level. I think that the Penguins are just fine with that third pairing. And I think as Marino grows into his NHL game, I'm curious to see where he goes. Are we seeing a kid pretty close to his ceiling, just cleaning up some small details, or are we seeing the beginning of John Marino? Is this just the tip of the iceberg? Let me zoom in here a little bit. All right. Get me back there. That's my question. I don't like McCann at center, hoping Bluger doesn't get scratched for that, Aaron says. I would agree. However, having said that, in the last 2 or 3 games, McCann has played very well at center. McCann isn't exactly an old guy, adverse or unable to add layers or learn things in his game either. He's still a young guy, and he's still able to improve and grow. So I think that's a possibility. Can the Penguins keep working with him? And I'm actually going to try to restart the computer because this is just driving me up a freaking wall. Give me a second here. I'm restarting the MacBook. So I'll be without your chat here for a few seconds. I'm supposed to be able to get the chat on here, but it never quite worked. I never quite figured out the settings. Here's another thing maybe we should talk about. I think the defense pairings are set. I think the lines are about to be set. How good can the Pittsburgh Penguins be? Is that not the ultimate question? We're all kind of wondering, where is this team? Are they first-round fodder? Are they Stanley Cup contenders? I'm quite anxious to see Evgeny Malkin, how he blends into this current team. If I had to bet, I would bet on Malkin kind of hitting the ground running. I think he's going to actually make more simple plays, at least in the short term. He's going to have some pains. He's going to try to make too many plays. He's going to try to go for some things that didn't make sense. You're going to say, oh, that's Gino, he's terrible. I think the important thing is to not be so invested in the past, not to grab onto it so tightly. Understand that Malkin is going to make a few more mistakes than the average player, because Malkin is not an average player. Malkin is also going to make plays the average player wouldn't dream of making. And you kind of balance all of that out. There's always plenty of bad that you can grab onto with any player. Look, if you were hell-bent on hating on Sidney Crosby, you could find a few things. And that's one of the frustrating things, is people get so invested in proving themselves right that people don't look forward. They look for supporting evidence, often at the exclusion of the big picture. And look, this is something I have to go through, is to make sure I don't ever get too ensconced in an opinion. Look, I teetered on Jack Johnson in preseason. Who wrote that the Penguins should go with Juuso Riikola, Erik Branson as the third pairing? Me, right? I like our lovely little troll here from a few minutes ago. Oh, how much does Jack Johnson pay you? Look, I call it as I see it. And I always have to make sure that I'm not investing in a past opinion. When I'm wrong or when things change, I'll tell you. And I would challenge everyone to do the same, and actually in a lot of areas of life, right? If you're invested in an outcome, well, you're limited to that outcome. Let's get back on this. Let's see if I can connect the laptop. Now that the show's like entirely over, let's see if I can figure this darn thing out. Drum roll, please. Display on the MacBook. Nope. Oh, couldn't get it. No idea why. That's a bit infuriating. Anywho. Let's get back to the chat board here. That fourth line was so fun to watch. It was, did the Oilers give up on Marino too soon like they did Schultz, or is this the Gonchar effect? This is actually neither. Marino didn't come out and say that Edmonton gave up on him. He didn't want to go there. My impression from talking to him at the Prospects Challenge in Buffalo, when he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but I'm very close to his exact quote. Edmonton wasn't the right situation. We looked around. Pittsburgh was. So essentially because he was going to be a college free agent. If he waited until, is it August 24th, August 26th, whatever that date is in August, when if you're so many years removed and from your draft date and you've played college hockey, you then become a free agent. Marino is going to become a free agent, and I guess Edmonton wasn't high on his priority list, or it wasn't high on his list. So I'm sure the Penguins probably had a conversation with him. That 6th round pick they gave Edmonton was indeed conditional for Marino. If the Penguins signed Marino, they gave Edmonton that 6th. Well, obviously they did. Marino said, "Oh, Pittsburgh, heck yes." Crosby health still an issue after Letang hit him with the puck? Nope. Ryan, with the Goodbranson trade, will the player we got play? No. Andreas Martinson, he's a Wilkes-Barre guy. You might never see him in Pittsburgh. He's 29 years old. He's played 152 NHL games, and I don't believe he's a serious contender for NHL work. Who do you think is the next to be traded? Ryan. Jeez, man. Penguins just got done with one big trade. Let's actually, I think the next action you'll see is a contract extension for somebody. How's that? Might sound crazy, but I'd move Bukestad and keep Lafferty. Well, Teddy Belmont. Lafferty has shown an NHL propensity. He's not on Bukestad's level. Let's not go crazy. I mean, look, I like Lafferty in the lineup. Don't get me wrong. But Bukestad doesn't get a lot of love from Penguins fans. And that's because he's not flashy. He doesn't score as many points as you'd like, although, look, a third-line center who's going to score 40, 45 points is right kind of in the middle of the road. I think so many of the things Bukestad does well, it doesn't look like he's doing them well because he's so large. Like, he skates really well. And I see some folks, sometimes debate him and think he's slow because he looks slow until you realize how much ground he covers in a very small period of time. He's actually quite quick. He is a really imposing forechecker because of that. Because of, he casts a pretty big shadow. Because he's quick, he's got a really good hockey IQ. He just, for whatever reason, doesn't get enough offensive chances, doesn't make enough of his offensive chances. He's not a perimeter player. Don't get me wrong. That's not quite what I'm saying. It's just that the puck doesn't find him in the dirty zones. Doesn't find him in front of the net. It doesn't find him 15 feet out, on his tape. It just doesn't for whatever reason. Because he's soft. Bukestad's soft. Look, he doesn't bring a lot of sandpaper, but he's strong as an ox. Strong on the puck. Strong against the puck. Soft is not the word I would use. Strictly your opinion, does Smith or Jarry? Who's better? Who's better for which role? I mean, DeSmith is doing amazing work to get himself ready for one start every 10 days, essentially, or maybe even longer than that. I mean, Jarry is doing kind of yeoman's work to stay ready. I think as a backup goalie, DeSmith is your better choice. As an organizational piece, I still see starting NHL goalie talent with Tristan Jarry. Bukestad reminds me of Jordan Staal right before Staal got traded. I don't think that's a compliment, probably, right? He's a poor man's Staal. Statistically speaking, he's not a poor man's Staal. Statistically speaking, he and Jordan Staal are pretty similar, are they not? See, that I think, guys, you're debating perception. Had Nick Bjugstad been part of the Stanley Cup teams, I think you'd have a much higher perception of Bjugstad than you do otherwise, if that makes any sense to you. He hasn't had that galvanizing moment to electrify the fan base. He hasn't had that great run or that great tear to get fans to hop on the bandwagon. He's just game in, game out, consistently good without being great, without being flashy. He just kind of gets the job done. He and Hornquist, I still think, are really good. Although they're probably playing against the wrong competition right now. As a second line, maybe not so much, but as a third line, they can be quite dominant. Let me see what questions I've missed. At his acquisition, it sounded like Tanev was a replacement for Rust. I love Rust, but I feel like he's the spare. I think what the Penguins are finding is that I do have to do the Joey Bag of Donuts podcast with Joey here in about 15 or 20 minutes. But I think what the Penguins are finding is that you can have multiple pieces like Tanev and Rust and McCann on the wing and Hornquist. You can have these guys. Look at the New York Islanders, for gosh sakes. Again, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, despite not actually being one of the most talented teams on paper, or one of the best teams on paper. The Penguins went for it in that mold, where they're going to be better on the ice than better on the paper. Brian Rust fits perfectly into that kind of mold as well. He's a 15 to 20 goal guy. He was at 19 goals last year. He's going to have the hot streaks and the cold streaks. He's going to have the moments when you're like, oh, Brian Rust, why can't you score more? But he's also going to have those games when he absolutely is a nightmare for opponents. So, you kind of take all of that. The Penguins have a lot of guys who are never going to make an all-star game, who are never going to score 30 goals or come within a country mile of it. And I think the Pittsburgh hockey culture kind of expects a handful of those guys. I mean, let's be honest. Outside of two eras, the late 90s, the Kevin Constantine era, and the Generation Next era. Outside of those two eras, for the last 35 years, the Pittsburgh Penguins have indeed had a handful of guys with 30-goal potential. So I understand where you're coming from. You're like, well, this guy is a poor man's Jordan Staal, but the reality is that it's how you win hockey games. It's sometimes not with the best players, but the right players. And the Penguins have turned that wheel to the best player, or from the best players to the right players, and that's what they're going for. Yeah, this has been a brutal chat. I apologize. 5 o'clock in the morning comes pretty early, especially on a game night last night. And so I'll get it together for next week. I'll have a few coffees. Hopefully the damn laptop and the iPad will actually sync up, and I'll have all the information that I wanted to show you. And very soon we will switch these to Facebook. I do not have any good trade rumors for you. Really, this is the time when NHL GMs are hunkering down. Everyone is in evaluation mode now. And the Penguins are finally getting there. Get a dedicated stream box? What is a dedicated stream box, and how could I use that with this? You'll have to explain this stuff to me. Tell you what, I'll give you guys my email address. This is going to be dangerous. No, I'm not going to put it on the chat board. Dan at pghhockeynow.com. For some of these technical ideas, mutation, just go ahead and email me. So I have no idea what a stream box is, or because it's all Apple because it actually has to be Apple. The program that we use, Switcher, insists on an Apple camera. It won't connect to an Android phone. It won't even let the MacBook film, believe it or not. It's kind of weird in that regard. So we have to be choosy. No, keep it on YouTube. I might. Maybe if I can figure out how to multitask it, I certainly will. Oh, okay, you sent me an email. Beautiful. Okay, kids, 50 minutes is far more than I was capable of tonight. We're going to just pull the plug. We're going to say goodnight, Gracie. So if you have some boredom, if you're just go to Redbeard's. That's what I'm trying to say. Just go to Redbeard's. All you can eat wings. By the way, if you ever do go to Redbeard's on all you can eat wing night, I can't remember if I did 30 or 33 wings last April after they came on as a sponsor. We'll check it out. So okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. Good night.